Hello students, welcome to English literature class. Today I am here with one of the chapter from your English Honeydew textbook. The name of the chapter is Bepin Chaudhury's Lapse of Memory. This story is written by Satyajit Ray. Let's talk about the author. Satyajit Ray, he was born on 2nd May 1921 and died on 23rd April 1992. He was born in Calcutta, Bengal. Ray was an Indian film director, writer, and illustrator. The government of India honored Ray with the Bharat Ratna, the highest civilian award, in 1992. Introduction about the story. It is a humorous story in which the main character is made to believe himself sick. Perforce, he thinks that he has a lapse of memory. In truth, there is nothing wrong with him. Let's try to understand it in some points. Number 1. This story revolves around a man named Bepin Chaudhury who doesn't remember his trip to Ranchi while everyone else does. Number 2. The story keeps the reader hooked as we try to figure out the cause of Bepin Chaudhury's mysterious forgetfulness. Number 3. All his friends seem to remember things that he has no idea about. Number 4. Has Bepin Chaudhury really lost his memory? Let's find out. Let's talk about characters, synopsis, summary and moral of the story. Following are the characters of the story: Bepin Chaudhury, Parimal Ghosh, Chunni Lal, Dr. Paresh Chanda. Now the summary of the story. Every Monday on his way back from work, Bepin Chaudhury would drop in at Kali Charan's in New Market to buy books. Crime stories, ghost stories and thrillers. He had to buy at least 5 at a time to last him through the week. He lived alone, was not a good mixture, had few friends and didn't like spending time in idle chat. Today, at Kali Charan's, Bipin Babu had the feeling that someone was observing him from close quarters. He turned round and found himself looking at a round-faced, meek-looking man who now broke into a smile. I don't suppose you recognize me. Have we met before? The man looked greatly surprised. We met every day for a whole week. I arranged for a car to take you to the Honeydew Falls in 1958 in Ranchi. My name is Parimal Ghosh. Ranchi? Now Bipin Babu realized that it was not he, but this man who was making a mistake. Bipin Babu had never been to Ranchi. He had been at the point of going several times, but never made it. He smiled and said, "Do you know who am I?" "Do I know you?" "Who doesn't know Bepin Chaudhury?" The man raised his eyebrows, bit his tongue and said, Bipin Babu now turned toward the bookshelf and said, "Still you are making a mistake. One often does. I've never been to Ranchi." The man now laughed aloud. "What are you saying, Mr. Chaudhury? You had a fall in Honeydew and cut your right knee. I brought you iodine. I had fixed up a car for you to go to Natarhat the next day, but you couldn't because of the pain in the knee. Can't you recall anything? Someone else you know was also in Ranchi at that time, Mr. Dinesh Mukherjee. You stayed in a bungalow." Bipin Babu spoke quietly, his eyes still on the books. "Which month in 58 are you talking about?" "October." "No, sir. I spent puja in 58 with a friend in Kanpur. You are making a mistake. Good day." But the man didn't go, nor did he stop talking. "Very strange. One evening I had tea with you in a veranda of your bungalow. You spoke about your family. You said you had no children and that you had lost your wife 10 years ago. Your only brother had died insane, which is why you didn't want to visit the mental hospital in Ranchi." When Bipin Babu had paid for the books and was leaving the shop, the man was still looking at him in utter disbelief. Bipin Babu's car was safely parked in Bertram Street by the Lighthouse Cinema. He told the driver as he got into the car, "Just drive by the Ganga, will you, Sitaram?" Driving up the Strand Road, Bipin regretted having paid so much attention to the intruder. He had never been to Ranchi, no question about it. It was inconceivable that he should forget such an incident which took place only 6 or 7 years ago. He had an excellent memory unless Bipin Babu's head reeled. Here, intruder means unwanted person. Was he losing his mind? But how could that be? He was working daily in his office. He was a big firm and he was doing a responsible job. He wasn't aware of anything ever going seriously wrong. Only today he spoke for half an hour at an important meeting, and yet the man knew a great deal about him. How? He even seemed to know some intimate details. The bag of books, wife's death, brother's insanity. The only mistake was about his paying gone to Ranchi. Not a mistake, a deliberate lie. In 58, during the pujas, he was in Kanpur at his friend Haridas Bagchi's place. All Bipin Babu had to do was write to. No, there was no way of writing to Haridas. Bipin Babu suddenly remembered that Haridas had left with his wife for Japan some weeks ago and he didn't have his address. But where was the need for proof? He himself was fully aware that he hadn't been to Ranchi, and that was that the river breeze was bracing and yet a slight discomfort lingered in Bipin Babu's mind. Around Hastings, Bipin Babu decided to roll up his trousers and take a look at his right knee. There was the mark of an old inch-long cut. It was impossible to tell when the injury had occurred. Had he never had a fall as a boy and cut his knee? He tried to recall such an incident but couldn't. Then Bipin Babu suddenly thought of Dinesh Mukherjee. The man had said that Dinesh was in Ranchi at the same time. The best thing surely would be to ask him. He lived quite near in Baninandan Street. What about going right now? But then, if he had really never been to Ranchi, what would Dinesh think if Bipin Babu asked for a confirmation? He would probably conclude Bipin Babu was going nuts. No, it would be ridiculous to ask him. And he knew how ruthless Dinesh sarcasm could be. Sipping a cold drink in his air-conditioned living room, Bipin Babu felt at ease again. Such a nuisance. Just because they have nothing else to do, they go about getting into other people's hair. After dinner, snuggling in bed with one of the new thrillers, Bipin Babu forgot all about the men in market. Next day in the office, Bipin Babu noticed that with every passing hour, the previous day's encounter was occupying more and more of his mind. If the man knew so much about Bipin Babu, how could he make such a mistake about the Ranchi trip? Just before lunch, Bipin Babu decided to ring up Dinesh Mukherjee. It was better to settle the question over the phone. At least the embarrassment of his face wouldn't show. 235616. Bipin Babu dialed the number. Hello, is that Dinesh? This is Bipin here. Well, what's the news? I just wanted to find out if you recall an incident which took place in 58. 58? What incident? Were you in Calcutta right through that year? That's the first thing I've got to know. Wait just a minute, 58. Just let me check in my diary. For a minute there was silence. Bipin Babu could feel that his heartbeat had gone up. He was sweating a little. Hello? I've got it. I'd been out twice. Yes, where? Once in February nearby to Krishnanagar to a nephew's wedding, and then, but you'd know about this one, the trip to Ranchi. You were there too, that's all. But what's all this sleuthing about? Bipin Babu slammed the receiver down and gripped his head with his hands. He felt his head swimming. A chill seemed to spread over his body. There were sandwiches in his tiffin box, but he didn't eat them. He had lost his appetite. After office work, Bipin Babu returned home. He lay down on the bed and again began to think about that incident. At 7:30, Bipin Babu's servant told him that Mr. Chunni Lal wants to meet him, which is so urgent. Chunni asked him for money, but Bipin Babu refused. Besides, he began to confirm about the incident of Ranchi and his last job just to verify if he was losing his memory or not. But Chunni Lal also replied positively. Then Bipin Babu called Dr. Paresh Chanda for treatment. At the end of the lesson, Bipin himself went to Hudru. When he reached Hudru, he felt unconsciousness there. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in Calcutta. Few minutes later, Bipin's servant brought a letter which was describing Chunni's revenge. Now Bipin understood all the matter. When Dr. Chandra again came to treat him, he was totally surprised when Bipin told him that he was better now. He just needed a painkiller as he has fallen in Ranchi. So this is the summary of this chapter. Now let's discuss the moral of the chapter. We must try to understand and empathize with people around us and connect with the common thread that makes us all human. Experience is a hard teacher because it gives the test first, the lesson afterwards. That's all about this story. If you have any query, feel free to ask. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe.